Wrong pedal. Whatever. Looks like we're starting. Sup, nerds? How y'all doing? Happy Wednesday. Sorry I missed you guys this weekend. I reset my sleep schedule and then unreset it accidentally because I was up too late coding again. I keep doing this to myself. So much going on. It's always my stream days where everybody hits me up, which is very annoying too. Ben's AI psychosis getting bad. Oh boy, what did I miss this time? Oh yeah. I feel bad for introducing Ben to the idea of Iraq. It has probably still net positive, but it's on the line, especially considering how much of the hardware that's in here I recommended to him. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't stream this weekend. The advancements in math is very interesting. I am very excited about, what did they say the model's named? Astra. Yeah, sounds like it's going to be very, very good. Yeah, I can't believe that the model to give Ben psychosis is V4 Flash. This is this is like his equivalent of the grok code fast moment. It's been fun to watch. I am dragging him to DEF CON with me tonight, though, so hopefully that break will help a bit. Aster doing math, Anthropic is jealous of OpenAI, and then Apple being dumb. Yeah, the Apple one, I want your guys' honest thoughts on that. Is because if I cover the OpenAI Apple lawsuit, I'm gonna be really pro OpenAI. And I'm concerned about how that's going to look because it feels like they did nothing wrong here. And I just don't want the shill accusations as usual. What's Dex tweeting? Slap code bench. This will be fun. I have to message Discord, so 1 sec for me to do that without leaking, hopefully. I love my new screen hide. This makes me feel so much better. Cool, and I can just undo that. Nice. Does OpenAI pay me? No, they do not. What do you have for me here? I don't like the attached. We've considered this before. I like this more, the wedge and the triangle it makes there. Still don't love it. This is better. I think I just need to pay someone. Oh, you made a bunch for other things. That's super cool, actually. Okay, what do you have for me here? Wrong link. Yeah, love that you're pushing so much code in T3 code. Yeah, Gary is losing the plot. He always kind of had lost it. He's clueless. Him and I have had quite the beefs before. He copes very hard. Oh, this is great. I love this. Oh, the diff counter is broken because we are much more real with it about what's changed between turns, but that means that like if you pull something from main, that gets counted. I do have a branch up where I clean up a bunch of it. How do I explain this? It's like it's really hard to track what's changed in a thread, especially when you're like pulling things in, because like I could track all of the edits the model makes, but then if you npm install something, it won't be included. I can track all of the things that change from like main, but what if you're branching off a different branch? I put a lot of thought into this, and my decision was that I'll deal with it later, but soon-ish I will deal with all this. I think that the videos I filmed today might help you better understand this, Jay Sayubi. Gabe, thanks for entertaining your stupid DM. We touched the Apple show with a 10-foot pole. It's absolutely poisoned and it stinks like Denmark. Yeah, I am 50-50 on it. I will do my best to explain what I mean by this. Yeah, this guy's great. I should hit him up and get more help. You got hit with the spam filter. BunnyNet added more US-based third-party providers. I don't know what non-US CDNs make sense. I'm very much a Bunny and Cloudflare guy, personally. Each their own. But I think I'm used code. I think I installed it. Not done anything with it yet. We'll get there. So the things I want to talk about today. Facebook cloned Claude code. Other programming languages. End of coding in terminals. T3 code is good now. This is obviously the only like high pry we have today. I do have to leave kind of early because I have a flight to catch. So I'm going to try and be out by 5, which means we got 3 solid hours. So we need to start filming like ASAP. I kind of want to do the model tier list if we have time for it. Yeah, I know people weren't expecting the pre-DEF CON stream, but I have to. Like, I didn't stream over the weekend. I can't take on new things like command code right now. I'm sorry. I'm pumped that you guys got the release out, but like, if it's not open source and integrating into T3 code, I can't be bothered right now. Like, it's either major lab or integration. Everything else is just not worth the effort at the moment. That will hopefully change soon. Let's start with the Facebook cloned Claude code. Get the links box in with T3 tunnels. It's addictive. You get me now? That's awesome to hear. Wait till you see all the mobile app updates that we have cooking too. That'll make it even better. I want to try out the STE stuff. I'm going to set it up for myself and do a video next week if it's still good. M5 Pro 64 gig. That's awesome. Congrats, man. Let's do the offset marker before I forget. I have not talked about the Hank Green stuff because that happened like while I was not streaming. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to do the teabag too. Let me do that. Yeah, as for the Hank Green thing, the weird reality there is that I've been talking to him a bunch about AI and AI code stuff. And I'm almost scared if I talk about it that it will hurt him more for being associated with a like AI dev YouTuber. So it's best for me to just stay out of it. They won't care about me. I think that like my community will see my video and be cool with it. But if his community sees my video and the people who are mad about this sees my video, it's not going to be good. So I'm just going to stay out of that one. And it hurts because he did literally nothing wrong. He genuinely is just into science and nerdy shit and has been having a genuinely super fun time building shit with Claude. And it's frustrating that like that happened the way it did. Yeah. Didn't Demis step down to like a chief science role though? He's still there. We're talking about Hank Green. he's getting flamed for using AI stuff recently, which is annoying because he's using it responsibly and is a really good like middle ground for being realistic about the stuff. Oh, did somebody steal my handle? Whatever. I don't plan on using the Cloudflare pay stuff. Let me thank subs quick that we're going to go straight into filming because otherwise I'll be really behind. I did notice when I was filming ads yesterday that a bunch of people were resubbing while I was offline, which was interesting. Yeah, thank you, Crazy Philip, for starting us strong today. Yash for coming up right after with the 3 years. God damn. Good to see you as always, man. Hope you're doing well. Artem Coding here with the 14 months. Dog Paw Hat with the 49 months. Boom Big Jan, always good to see you. 10 months in. XCSS for the 17 months. Hope you're doing amazing. I ups and downs, but mostly ups. I've been having a shitload of fun. Oh shit, Shadow, you took that handle for me? I appreciate it. Seriously, hit me up on Twitter if you have a Twitter, and I will find out what it looks like to transfer that. I'm friends with the CTO of Cloudflare, so I'm sure he can like give a thumbs up on it. Another NPM attack. Wonderful. I think things are behind. Yeah, they have Google has to do like a pretty hard reset. God damn it, Jamie. I owe you a text, but now I owe you even more with a huge gift bomb like that. Thank you so much. Yeah, and you guys made the announcement, right? If I recall, the big announcement, the good news. Yes, you did. Sharing the Series B love. Fuck yes. Congratulations, Jamie. I am so proud of y'all and seeing you guys succeed and seeing the growth you have had. So well deserved. For those who don't know, Jamie is the CEO of one of my favorite companies, the one I build most of my shit on, Convex. And they just raised a Series B, so they have money. Woo. Congratulations, well deserved. What do we got here? Oh yeah, another NPM pwn. I actually did see this. I think I even saved it. I was planning on taking a look at this later. The site is beautiful, and I really, really liked, because I was scrolling through this a few days ago when you first linked it. There was, this section where you can click the sections and it shows you what it's like to have these particular accessibility needs. Was so cool. So I really like what you're cooking here. I will absolutely give that a shot the moment I have free time. Of course, I'm sorry I didn't respond yet. I've just been so fucking busy, but I absolutely planned on it. I think I genuinely use Convex for every project since Theo did a video on it. Good shit. I saw we were dethroned, but it was for bullshit, and we will get it back. Do not worry. We're so close. I need 1 or 2 good shit posts, and we'll be number 1 again. And it's fucking Flock, the like camera company everyone hates. Yeah, Hank will bounce back, but he's definitely pretty bummed. We're buying a company Cybertruck? Oh, God. Yeah, congrats again to Convex. Can you get a private beta for T3 Chat Mobile? Is Gabriel here? If Gabriel is here, we can make sure he and Mark get you in. Recently, the focus has just been T3 code. I'll be real. It's been fun. I do need to get the native build up for a actual like test flight in case others want it. I've been trying to convince the team that the Swift UI build is worth it. I have it somewhere in here. Yeah. Swift UI client. This has been a project. Yeah, Gabriel, make sure we can get Jamie in on the T3 chat beta. Jamie, like Convex Jamie. Cool. I was on here. Yeah. I'm surprised first off at how small this is. It's only like 45K lines. And it feels awesome. And it's pretty easy to build it yourself too. If you're down to not use T3 Connect and use like the tunnels through Tailscale, it's been surprisingly good. Oh shit, someone else has used my native build? Michael, you used it? The Swift UI app is entirely Swift. It took a lot of work to polish it, especially the lists. Lists just don't work well in that world, but I bought it and it's good enough. I need to add pagination and a few other things. They aren't in the React Native app either, but we'll get there eventually, soon, TM. Yeah, let me finish thanking subs, and we got to get filming because I'm on a time crunch. As many have noticed, I'm supposed to be at DEF CON right now. Running out of app icon colors? Yes, very, very much so. Good to see you, Jamie. Okay, I think I thanked all you guys. And we got to Tyro. Thank you, Tyro, for the Prime. Amir Dev for the 14 months. Raphael Tabs, 8 of 100, baby. Let's go. Fuck yeah. Let's see when we can hit 100. Gonna be around for... Hopefully I'm still streaming that long. How does one not get pwned at DEF CON? Keep your devices up to date. If your devices are up to date, you're not going to get pwned at DEF CON. Nobody's burning 0 days on hacking random people at DEF CON. We got Picasso here with the 4 months of Prime. Theo Goat, really liked your last video. I'd love to see more videos on how I work on things. We're hopefully doing some of that today. T3 Connect Godsend, able to attend a soccer game and do a bit of work during the breaks. That's the goal. Scenario drama is probably not going to be a video. It's just like, if you're going to fork, call it a fork and credit it accordingly. That's all I ask. I want people to fork T3 code. I just don't want them to override the license and slopify the attempt to hide the fact that it was from T3 code and then talk a bunch of shit about how they got the feature ideas from other things when they clearly got them from T3 code. Just saying. How's the big T3 code push going? It's going pretty fucking nuts. I have been surprised. I can show you guys numbers. Refresh. We're about to hit, I think we might actually be over. No, last week we got super close to 35,000 weekly actives. And we had, 164,000 users. So that's 10,000 that we gained over just the weekend. Come on, post hog. We'll get there in a sec. It only counts fork users if they carry over RID, which they don't usually. Orchestration V2 is coming very soon. I'm trying to sneak in a different change first to like get visualization sooner. Yeah, we're at 165K users. You know what? I'll do a reset at 200,000. It won't do anything because we don't sell any inference, but yeah. Is the T3-Serve WebSocket orchestration protocol intended as a third-party integration surface, or should external clients treat it as internal and pin versions tightly? All I'll say here for now is do whatever the fuck you want. We treat it relatively stable. Like, we want it to be seen as reliable enough to build on top of. I considered doing like at Tebow, will you let us do, or will you do a reset when we hit 200K users? Because I know he probably would, but I want to push my luck. I've been relying on my resets a lot recently. I am at quota regularly. I got one of my fables reset last night. I haven't had a chance to really use it yet. Thankfully, my codex is holding up, especially considering how much I've been abusing my codex. It's been very nice that it held up so well. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm not showing YouTube chat as much. It's just so fucking broken. Yeah, from here. Well. Okay, let's finish thanking subs. Then we're going to go film. Got S. John and extended the gift from NMG. Always good to see you, man. Hope you're doing well. And thank you, as always, for helping keep YouTube cleaned up as well. I've not tried Buzz yet. I really want to, but again, it's just time. I did have a Jack from Twitter, like the original Jack, hit me up about Buzz to have me try it. And I used that connection to get in touch with a product lead at Tidal so I could get all my bugs in Tidal fixed. So I've been very, very happy with Buzz because it got me to get Tidal bugs fixed finally. Thank you, H. Smitty, for the Prime. Snowy for the 5. I'm sorry I missed that before. It got trampled by the giant gift of 20 from Jamie, but always appreciate the gift, Snowy. Hope you're doing well. Let me know when you're raising, by the way. We got Jay Sayubi here with the Prime. Always good to see you. Rotating Phaser, the legend, 33 months in. Jeff Dean Leeming and Demis thing. I feel like there's not actual news about Google, so it's hard to justify talking about it. VS Code status once themes and extensions arrive. I don't think VS Code status is a thing that will really exist going forward, but hopefully. Happy that you're enjoying your flex with the MacBook, Fred. We got Prom with the 10 months. Thank you for that. Pixel Zerg with the 5 months. JD Pava hitting the year. Jamie with that huge 20 bomb. S. John throwing a 5 bomb right after. Thank you for the kindness and the gifts as always, guys. Roger with the Prime. Ryan is Bliss with the Prime. Vero Helios with the Prime as well. Stu throwing a gift. Always good to see you. You don't need to pay me, man. Especially with how much I want to help you out more. I hope I can get back to your messages soon. Again, sorry the chaos has been too much lately. Magic Knot with the Prime. Marmor Labs with the tier 1. Cobalt Blade 9000 with the 3 months. Marmor Labs with the 5 bomb right after. God damn. You guys are so generous today. McKinley Codes with the Prime. Zocker with the 8 months with the Prime. Finally catching a stream. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Then we got Felpix here with the Prime as well. Thank you all. T3 bot making PRs. Oh God, what did it do here? That's a good PR. Soy Pete Tech with the raid. Thank you for that. Okay. Let's get started. Going straight into it with Facebook cloned Claude. Let's do it. Are my links up right? Cool. Water. We can get going. My lid on my tea quick. Cool. I'm feeling pretty good to go. Shall we hence? I have something I'm a little ashamed to admit. I'm actually a pretty decently I have something I'm a bit ashamed to admit. I'm a pretty big fan of Meta. Not of things like Facebook, like, no, gross, not my thing at all. But when it comes to their actual software contributions and things they do for the ecosystem, I found them to be pretty solid, if not great. Projects like React and React Native were essential for the success of the web as it is. Projects like React and React Native were essential to the growth of the web and to an extent mobile as well, and are genuinely incredible things that they've put out there for free for people to use however they want. Their contributions to the AR and VR ecosystem were all things that I enjoyed heavily at the time because I'm a big VR nerd. And when they started doing when they started building AI models, they did that well too with the open weight model. And when they started getting into AI, they did that similarly well with their focus on open weight models with the Llama line. To this day, Llama is still used almost like a generic term for open weight models, and it's crazy how far the Llama models went, but it's even crazier how far the entire industry has moved ahead of Meta. They've been trying to correct course for a while with this hidden, quietly worked on line of models called Muse, and historically they have not been accessible beyond their little web interface to try it out. But apparently they've been trying to make it ready for code, not just the model, but the tools around it as well. And that's why Zuckerberg revived his old Twitter account over the last week. And that's why Zuckerberg started tweeting again, because they just put... And now they're finally ready to release. Zuckerberg just announced on Twitter, by the way, that Muse code is out in beta today. This is their clone of Claude code, and it's powered by Muse Spark 1.2, which is their new coding-focused model. It's been a while since I've seen a lab publish benchmark numbers where they're not in first place in anything. but that doesn't mean it's a bad model. As you guys probably saw in my video about Grok 4.5, there is still a lot of value in well-priced, fast, useful models. And with with Meta's focus on using every model for everything lately and collecting all the data they get as a result, it's actually going to be pretty interesting to see how well this performs. So I'm going to go through this with y'all together. I'm going to try it live. I'm going to read through what they have to say. I'm going to see what others are doing with it, get a feel for the price and the weird quirks as well. And I just had to sign into my terminal with Facebook, so I'm feeling a little gross. This is going to be a journey, and I hope you enjoy it with me. But first, a quick break for today's sponsor. What do you have for me from Prime Intellect? Oh. Interesting. We'll look later. So let's start with what Zuckerberg had to say about their most recent release. Releasing Muse Code in beta today. It's a terminal coding agent that takes on complex software engineering tasks across large repos, planning changes, writing code, validating the results. It's powered by Muse Spark 1.2, which is a coding-focused model update. This is going to be an interesting one because a lot of the other legacy companies like, Microsoft and Google don't necessarily have the best stack internally, whereas Facebook has done some incredible things with their internal tech. They didn't use Git because it was too slow for the scale they were moving at, so they built their own custom everything on top of Mercurial, and it's really powerful to the point where people have been trying to copy their workflows with things like stacked PRs and stacked diffs. I know a lot of people who used to work at Meta and left and just missed all of that tooling that made it so much easier to work in these gigantic projects that are Meta scale. Other companies like Google also have gigantic monorepos, but they are less focused on fixing them. In fact, they've went as far as laying off the teams that built the tooling to make them usable. Meta's always done the opposite, where they'll rewrite a language if they have to, like they rewrote PHP in Hack in order to try and make their code bases work better. Since their code is since Meta's code bases are so huge, it's often easier to rewrite the language that's underneath them than it is to rewrite the code base itself on a better language. And that type of thinking is, at least it was, unique to Meta for a long time. And I think it kind of positions them well to dive into this world of using models and tools to work with your code bases at that scale. And that's why they've been using models like Fable and Opus so heavily recently. So it's interesting to see what they're cooking here. They shared some benches here, and the first notable thing is that they're not putting Fable or Sol in these lists. They're only putting Opus and 5.6 Terra in, which is a choice. In Terminal Bench 2.1, they slightly beat out Terra and are slightly behind Opus 5. There's also a big jump from USpark 1.1 to 1.2. 1.1 was barely available to the public. 1.2 is now actually out, and the pricing's really interesting, which we'll show in a little bit. Deep Sui, which is one of the benchmarks I prefer, it did pretty well here, getting a slightly higher score than Grok 4.5, which is nuts because I actually found Grok 4.5 to be a very pleasant to use model, but it's still lagging behind Terra and Opus, which means it's far behind models like Sol and Fable. And then Meta's internal coding bench, it came in second place in, with Muse Spark being much closer in third. And if this model is as far off as other benches showed, I think their internal bench might not be the best. They also, in their internal bench, have Terra and Gemini 3.6 Flash, suspiciously close. So we shall see as we go. So should pull up Artificial Analysis to see if they have posted about this as well. Back to what Zuck had to say. Oh God, they're already getting community noted. Community note, Meta is still dead last in AI with this release. Okay, maybe not, Apple is, but they're behind just as much as Google Gemini is. That's not a thing you need to put in a community note, nerds. Anyways, according to Zuck, Muse Code runs specialized background agents that stay active your whole session, so they build up context over time instead of starting from scratch on every task. Interesting. When a job is big enough, it fans out the separate sub-agents working in parallel in isolated work trees. Your working copy is never touched. In testing, we had it build 6 features for a game simultaneously with no collisions. Huh. Very interesting. Again, big code base stuff. We pointed Muse Spark 1.2 at a kernel optimization task and let it run. 1,000 tool calls over 24 hours on NVIDIA Hopper. It kept finding substantial improvements well beyond the initial exploration phase. This is also particularly funny because, or this is also kind of funny to me because Meta rented a bunch of TPUs from Google. They're one of the few companies to actually buy and rack hardware from Google. And then Google went and rented a bunch of GPUs from NVIDIA, all from XAI and SpaceX. So Google is reselling their shitty chips to Meta so they can use the money to go buy better chips from NVIDIA through XAI. And now apparently Zuckerberg is still stuck on NVIDIA. Auditable by design, every model call, tool run, and edit has a local event log before it executes. If it crashes mid-task, it picks up exactly where it left off from that log. No lost work and no reprompting. Pricing. It's easy and low cost to get started. Install Muse code with one line and you can start on our contributor tier. Contributor tier is an interesting piece we'll talk about in a second. Muse Spark 1.2 is our next step as we push towards Frontier with larger, more capable models on the way. Install it, use it, and tell us what you think. Well, the first thing I think is that when you Google search Muse Spark, you get all of these old articles about 1.1, this old developer page. Okay, this one has 1.2 on it now, but it was actually kind of hard and annoying to find this initially. You can look at what they have here. Race reviews and ships code with fewer steps and lower latency. They even put on OpenRouter this time. Here's the slide I was looking for, though. The price tiers. Here's the part I was looking for, though. The price. Move that so you can see. Cool. $1.25 per mil in, 15 cents for cashed 1 mil in, and $4.25 per mil out. Not great pricing until you realize I was hiding something from you. The contributor price tier. This tier is 10 cents per mil in and 20 cents per mil out, with 0.2 cents per cached input token. That is a 10 to 20x price gap. They're effectively giving out the contributor version for free because they need training data so goddamn badly. I need to find a tweet quick. Okay, we'll find that. Well, that's finding that. I want to kick off some tasks quick so that we can actually have things to talk about. Cool. I don't know the order of events that we're going to do for the video, but if we put the code now, cool. If not, we can put this part later. Probably going to put this part later, but recording it now so I can kick it off. I think it's about time we fire off some prompts. I just opened Muse code inside of the T3 code base. It's defaulting to 1.2 contributor on high. And since T3 code is fully open source, I don't mind if they get my data. They probably have it anyways. Let's see what happens here. Give me an overview of... I'll just ask it for some basic questions. I'm going to tell it to give me an overview of the architecture of this code base. We'll see where that ends up. Cool. We'll cut to me using it later. That was weirdly quick. Okay, it's fast. It seems to understand the code base decently well, too. Everything I'm reading as I go through is fine. Ta-da. Yeah, I'll give you a better cut for this. I asked it to give me an overview of the architecture of the code base, and it had this under 30 seconds. Not bad. Let's see where this goes if I ask it for something a little harder where it has to investigate more. There are a few things in the event sourcing in T3 code that I don't love. I have some PRs up working on it, but I'm curious if the model can find them itself. I asked it if it can find anything suspicious about the event sourcing model, things cause weird behaviors on different platforms, unnecessary bandwidth usage and lag, etc. Let's see what it does for that. Another interesting thing I noticed when I set this up is that it pulled all of my skills and personal rules from Claude code. Normally, things don't use the .claude directory because it's Claude's. They use the shared .agents standard and agentmd, stuff like that. They seem to be really focused on Claude. And from everything I know about how Meta's been working lately, they're definitely an Anthropic house. They use a lot of Opus and a lot of Fable there. How fast is this model, though? Because it is... How fast is this model, though? Because it is flying. Yeah, 174 TPS. Okay. Okay. Now we're talking. For comparison, Grok 4.5, which is still quite fast, is at 50 to 52 TPS. And a model like 5.6 Sol is 30 to 50. It's crazy that Azure is performing that much better than OpenAI's official servers are right now, but yeah, you're welcome. I had to fight hard to get Azure to move. What am I not looking at in chat, nerds? P99? Damn. Apparently, Spark can go as high as 300 TPS, which is pretty nuts. That is cool. I did not think it would be this fast. Especially for that price, too. That's nuts. And it hopefully is good. We shall see as I ask it to make real changes. Can I zoom out more? Will that syntax look better? Not really. Okay. Cool. It has some interesting findings here. I'm going to tell it to summarize them. Summarize your findings in an easy to digest HTML file. Let's see if it's able to find my HTML plan skill and actually take all of this work and synthesize it. Look at that. Already found the skill. Now it is thinking. Hopefully it will synthesize this properly and then put things up. It's interesting to state how much data this skill is. There's definitely some slop in here. Things like the way that the full path for files is included in the UI and stuff. Like this CLI is a bit slop. Don't ask again. NPM cache has root-owned files. Okay, it worked that time. Here is the HTML it made for me to summarize the findings that it had. Pure decider plus single serialized worker is correct. Cost surface is at the wire. Full snapshots on subscribe. Unbounded tool payloads in a global sequence that couples every thread. Cool. So here's what we'll do for a comparison. I'm going to do a Claude run with Fable. Make sure I don't leak shit. Cool. We're going to paste this. I have a plan here. You know what? I want to try DeepSeek 4. Let me install the latest Pi. How do I update Pi? Well, my Pi is not opening. How do I add providers? I know they have a bunch. As you can tell, I don't use this much. It's just /login. Sign in with an account. I want to do open code. Do they not have open code Zen in here? I thought they would have Zen in here. Under subscription, or is it API key? Yeah, there we go. Open code Zen. Again, give me a moment. I have that $200 plan that they briefly put out and then stopped doing. Cool. Nice. Cool. Model, DeepSeek V4 Flash. This will be the latest, right? Like the V4 Flash through open code Zen is the latest one, right? Cool. Just making sure. Let's copy over the same prompt then. God, that is fast as fuck too. For reference, Muse 1.2 got me this feedback and even had an HTML page generated all in well under a minute. I've just been trying to get similar feedback from Fable, and we're over 4 minutes in and still don't have any useful anything here. I also have DeepSeek Flash running in the background as well, just as a comparison, because the new Flash release was really solid too, just to get a comparison across things here. I know it's not that destructive, but it's good enough. Make sure I allowed data retention. I will go check that I did. Settings. I might actually not be able to because I'm on that special plan. Yeah, I don't think I can, sadly. Oh, well. RG wasn't finding them because I used -G quote star.ts, which doesn't work on macOS with ripgrep. Interesting. This is the DeepSeek one running, by the way. God, these are both so slow and not getting me useful feedback so far in comparison. It's been very interesting. My plan is I'm going to take the findings that Muse had and throw them at these other two models after and say, how do these compare? So my favorite ways to get a feel for what model strengths and weaknesses are is to have them all do the same task, have them write up the results, and then have them compare each other's results. Okay, while I'm waiting for those to run, I want to spin up one of my game tasks. Select code, experimental projects, fish, slop gens, make dir, Muse 1.2, code. Is there a YOLO mode? Yes, there is. He's already getting errors from the tools. Wonderful. Okay. DeepSeek Flash just finished its analysis. I'll ask it, write up your findings in HTML. See if it can figure out my HTML skill. Oh, use my HTML skill. You can read it from my .agents or .claude. It doesn't have skills built in by default, if I recall. Oh, it did. It found it. Nice. I just remembered another thing I wanted to make. Did they finally fix MCP? God, I have too much to talk about in way too little time. I got 3 hours left, not even. Cool. Well, we'll let those games be built. These are going to take a bit. I'll come back to my terminals momentarily. Let's go back to going through all this. So, Jeff, put me going over things first and then the code after. Cool. Cool. Did they not tweet about this yet? I want to go through other numbers that matter before showing off the code that I can write with Muse. I already have it working in the background, and it's surprisingly fast. We'll talk about that in a sec. But first, I want to look at the numbers from artificial analysis. As you can see here, Muse Spark 1.2 falls right between Kimi K3 and Grok 4.5. I will say it's a little bit embarrassing to release a closed weight model as a lab that has billions of dollars like Meta does, and have it be behind an open weight model that came out much before it. That is a little embarrassing, but also if it's really fast and cheap and reliable, these numbers don't mean everything, because I can tell you confidently that Opus 5, despite being at the front of this list and tricking me into thinking it was a great model, ended up all being Copus, because I hate using Opus 5 now. Once I started merging the code it wrote, I realized how bad it was, because I had to have Fable and 5.6 Soul come in and clean up the mess. Not great. But again, Kimi K3 actually felt quite usable, as did Grok 4.5, but Opus at the front doesn't feel usable for real code work at all. But what I really want to see is output tokens. How did they do here? Interesting. Okay. So Muse Sparks runs did about 30k tokens per task, compared to about 36k for Fable 5, and compared to about 17k for 5.6 Soul. So it's not quite as inefficient as Anthropic models, but it is far from the efficiency that we see from models like the GPT line or Grok 4.5. Very interesting. Definitely puts it in a weird, different spot. Like, this model isn't just another open weight model tuned or something. Like, this really is a new model, and it should feel quite different, especially when you look at the speed that this model has too. I don't think they have recent speed numbers yet on artificial analysis, but they do have them on OpenRouter. Cut to when I was going over the OpenRouter numbers. I just go here. I'll just do it now instead. That's easier. Cool. MuseSpark is on OpenRouter. OpenRouter is an easy way to use pretty much every model, and they track the throughput and speeds that users are actually seeing when they use the models through OpenRouter. And they're seeing an average of 191 tokens per second, which is absolutely nuts. For reference, 5.6 Soul is only at about 30 tokens per second. So that is a gigantic improvement, like 5x plus. And if you look at the different... I wanted the... Did I have it here for the P99s? Did I miss the P99 view somewhere here? Did they not show it if there's more than one provider? I guess I can do it this way. Absolute best case with Soul is 134 TPS, but realistically speaking, the P50s in the 40s to 50s on OpenAI's official infra, and in the 50s for Azure at best. To compare, Muse Spark gets 316 TPS at its best and 162 at its P50. That is pretty nuts, and I feel the result coding with it already. Man, that Cerebrus deployment of 5.6 Soul can't come fast enough. It was supposed to already be out, so I'm not sure what happened there. No one's given me any info, sadly. Then we get to cost. And Muse Spark is performing absurdly well here at 40 cents per task on average through the Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index. That's still more expensive than V4 Flash is, as well as 5.6 Luna on Max, but it's a lot cheaper than other things. Even Mistral Medium is more expensive, and Kimi K3 is more than twice the cost for similar work. And this is also, I'm assuming, on the normal cost, and I'm assuming this is the normal cost too, not that contributor tier, which is effectively free. Ask. How do your findings DS1 compare to this? Ask Fable to do the same comparison. So we have that to look at. How are these going? Oh. Did it really make a whole game in 4 minutes? Did. It doesn't move properly. Like I can't turn. Kind of nuts that it made this whole thing from scratch in 4 minutes, though. Like, that part is impressive. It's just that the rest is broken. Mouse look does not work. And it made a 2D version of Fish Slop as well in 2 minutes and 39 seconds. For reference, when I put these same prompts to remake this game into other models like Opus, it took multiple hours to do. And this made it in under 5 minutes for both the 2D and 3D versions. Is it perfect? No, far from it. But it does have a couple niceties. Like it made solid animations using the sprites that it had access to from the other project. It did shadows and like contrast well. Like it has a weird type of taste that I haven't seen models have. It's obviously still jank as shit in a lot of ways, but like the little shadows are nice. The way things are moving is nice. It feels fluid. Like this model feels different. It doesn't feel like it's just distilled on other popular things. It does have a vibe to the results. And I am definitely curious what's going to happen when they make bigger and smarter versions. Cool. It just fixed, or it allegedly just fixed the 3D mouse broken stuff in a few seconds. And it does appear that it has. I can now look around as expected. The fish are all swimming backwards, though. That's hilarious. Fish are swimming backwards. I can't look up or down, only left and right. Can you use computer use to test it yourself? Oh, I found my codex computer use skill. Oh no, that is not the solution. As if it can do it itself without codex. Does it have vision? Oh shit, it does. That's huge. I'll give you a better intro to the fish slop section. I'm sorry if this is a bit messy, Jeff. Yeah. I had to try one of my favorite tasks where I take my crappy fish game and have it remake it both in 2D and in 3D. And the most impressive thing is how quickly it did it. It made the 2D version in about 2.5 minutes and the 3D version in under 5. For reference, Opus 5 took over an hour for both of these. And then cut to me actually playing with it. Okay, now the up and down movement of the mouse tilts this. That is broken as shit. And the fish are still moving backwards. It promised me it fixed that. Oh, wait, no, it didn't. Yes, please fix and rebuild. Okay. Nope. Fish move the right way now, but I still can't look up and down. Spaces both feed and go up. Yeah, there's a lot of little things it got wrong here. Like it doesn't understand that things can collide with each other, which is interesting. So one of the things they said the model was good at was like breaking things up and letting lots of stuff work at the same time. But it's getting work done, and it's doing it alarmingly fast. Like that's one of the nicest things here is using it to like touch something up seems to be a useful method. You know what? Let's give it something harder. Does it have work tree support first off? It does. Huge. That means I could play around with less risk a bit here. Can I YOLO mode from here? Nice. Oh. That's a bit annoying because I had that in a work tree. Dash dash work tree dash dash YOLO. Now we're in a safe work tree where I can ask it to do stupid things. Like, let's try their voice, actually. Allow. I would like to implement Muse as a provider inside of T3 code. I'm not sure what Muse code supports in terms of integration methods. I haven't played with it enough or looked into the SDK. I don't even know if it's open source. What I really want is to integrate it through a layer like ACP, similar to how we have integrated other providers in the past. But if we need something more custom, I am down. I would like you to start by investigating everything you need here, both how we can implement within T3 code, but also what is offered by Muse itself. You'll have to do some digging to find source code where available, docs, SDKs, and whatnot. Might be a bit hard to find because this is all still so new. Use a lot of subagents to break up the work as you go. I actually liked that voice to text. It showed things as I spoke, which a lot of other solutions don't. They just show it when you're done. So let's send that over and see how it goes. That's the first good terminal voice to text I've seen in any of these CLIs, if I'm being real. Look at that. It's already spawning subagents, and we can look at them almost the exact same way we can in Claude. I know I clickbaited a bit saying this is a Claude code clone, but like, this is such a Claude code clone. It's cool that it spun up all of these intelligently. Like it's clear they are trying to make this model good at this type of like broken up, heavy subagent breakup work. I just got hit with a rate limit. Are you kidding? I put in a credit card and everything. Are these subagents getting hit with them too? They are. Great. Why would you make a subagent flow like this if your APIs can't even handle it, Meta? Ugh. How much does it cost so far is a good question. Interesting. I hadn't actually checked out the dashboard before. They have instructions on how to set it up with other providers too, like OpenCode, Claude Code Codex, as well as curl and Python directly. Assuming the Python is showing you how to like set it up with code. I'm assuming this is like an OpenAI compatible API. I want to see how much I have spent. Not sure how accurate or up to date this is, but all the stuff I've done so far, both the huge audits of my code base as well as the mobile stuff that I don't know how accurate or up to date this is, but everything I've done so far apparently is only about 13 cents, including both of those game rewrites as well as the code base audit. So yeah, absurdly cheap. It's making progress here. Why is it talking about anti-gravity? I just asked, why is so much of this about anti-gravity? I didn't mention anti-gravity at all. It did very deep dive. It took 3 minutes. It did a deep dive and it took under 3 minutes, despite the fact that it was hitting rate limits. But like, the results are useless. Contributor has very low rate limits. Okay, that's the problem. It's because I'm on that contributor tier. Okay, I shouldn't be so amused by this, but this is actually objectively hilarious. I asked why is so much of the response talking about anti-gravity? I didn't mention anti-gravity at all. You're right. I assumed Muse equals anti-gravity, Google's AGY, CLI, and anti-gravity, because those names overlap heavily in recent search results, and I ran the whole investigation on that assumption without confirming. I don't have a clear hit for Muse as a distinct product. Web searches mostly return Muse Spark, which is Meta's new coding model, July 2026, an unreleased Muse Markdown OS project, something definitive for Muse CLI or SDK. Can you point me to what you mean by Muse? A URL, the company behind it, or what the binary or SDK is called would be enough. I'll give you a hint. I'm in it right now. Let's see if this can figure out what it is. I'm way too amused. Moderate Rock with, I thought they were a Radiohead clone. Very good. Yes, Muse is Muse Code itself, the CLI you're in right now, powered by Muse Code 0.1.0, powered by Muse Spark. My first investigation mapped it to anti-gravity by mistake, completely wrong target. Yep. So, of course, the Muse Code layer here does not have a lot of the functionality that I would want to integrate with it. Things like it being open source, things like it having an actual, or things like it having an SDK I can plug into, ACP as a way to communicate with it. It's missing a lot of the stuff I need. I told to write up a plan on how we would integrate Muse Code. I'm going to send a smarter model off to do this as well. You know what? I'm going to send the smarter model through this with a smarter tool. E3 code. I'll do it on this machine so that I have the results here. I want to integrate the new Muse Code CLI from Meta into T3 code as a new provider. Not much documentation exists, but I do have it installed right now. Investigate and help me figure out how we can integrate. Cool. Cool. I wrote this plan pretty quickly. There for now. Cool. So I have Fable both investigating how it would do it, and separately in parallel, I have it reviewing the plan that was written by Muse. Oof, the page layout's super broken. Bit annoying to make those types of mistakes still. There's a lot of things here that feel really last generation, but a lot of things that feel next generation too, where it's like, it seems to know how to break things up with subagents really well, but it also seems to struggle meaningfully with like basic page layout stuff or staying on task and not hallucinating its way down an entirely incorrect path. Do we get omniscience scores here yet? Cool. Oh, apparently it does well on AI Omniscience. That is weird to me because we just watched it hallucinate aggressively. Allegedly, it is about as bad of hallucinations as 5.6 Soul is and slightly better than Kimi K3. But considering how aggressively we just watched it do that, that was rough. Okay, this might need to be cut earlier so it fits better. Thought I had a table for this. Here, cool. Yeah, cool. After waiting far too long for both Fable and DeepSeek to come with... after waiting way too long for both Fable and DeepSeek to do a similar investigation, I asked them both to review their findings and compare it to what was found with Muse 1.2. And here we see the way that Fable categorizes the differences. And remember, Fable, when doing a similar task with Opus, thought that Opus had a much better investigation overall. It seems like that is not the case with the Muse investigations. There are a few places where it said that Muse did better. For example, the coverage breadth, it thinks Muse went a little further on. But for the most part, it thinks it did worse, and that Fable's plan was much more accurate and overall properly found root causes. Meanwhile, DeepSeek seems to think that the Muse plan was meaningfully better. Very interesting. Yeah, it's a solid model for the price, but I don't know if I would trust it for really heavy end-to-end work yet, but we'll test it a little more. Cool. I had Fable give feedback on Muse's plan to integrate Muse, and it said it's a solid plan and gave a little bit of feedback. So I'm going to do what I usually do in my real world day-to-day work when doing things like this, and I'm going to take that response, I'm going to paste it into the original chat with the first model that made the plan and see what it does. Cool. It updated the plan alarmingly quickly as well. It's very nice how fast this model is. It is fast and token efficient. It just feels great. Plan updated. Take another look. It is nice having all of these fast, cheap models getting smart. Again, it's been a while because everybody's been fighting so hard on the frontier. Considering that OpenAI just lowered the price of Luna by 80%, which is a massive drop on a model that was already really cheap. Like, $1.20 per mil out and 20 cents per mil in is just unbelievable. It's crazy that you can get a model with a million context window with the capabilities that Luna has for this price. And I've been using it a lot more for like random background tasks, categorization, titles, and stuff like that. So we We went from having no good small models forever to having Luna's price drop to the point where it became really competitive. DeepSeek V4 Flash getting an incredible update, making it way better at the prior for the price. Let me take on that. We went from having almost no good small models drop for months, if not like a year, to having Luna come out and then price drop massively by like 5x. DeepSeek V4 Flash just got a new snapshot that I was testing earlier that's really good, really fast, and really cheap. And now we have this new Spark 1.2 model that's also seemingly really good for the money, especially if you're on that contributor tier where they are reading all of the things that get sent. After the one passive feedback from Fable, apparently it thinks that the plan Muse wrote is ready to go. That's kind of nuts. We'll let that finish. Oh, I agree. This bug. Cool. It's gone. Man, I fucking love T3 code. It's so nice being able to just like hop between models, harnesses, and computers. I'm now spinning up Sol on one of my Linux boxes to compare the plans that Fable and Muse wrote separately. Come up with some ways to categorize. Cool. So I'm going to ask Sol to review these two plans, use a bunch of subagents to verify their claims and break up the work and review them thoroughly. We'll see how this goes. I'll pin this so it's near the top still. It did pin, not anything else. Cool. No, I don't need any more. Very curious to see how that all goes, actually. What do I want to cover next? So I've been neglecting y'all chat. While that runs, what have I missed? See, we're up to 36 cents of spend now that we've done all of the planning. Oh, nope, 40 cents. Wow. I'm going to go broke at this rate. Oh. For reference, just my little tests with Fable and Opus on this computer for reading those plans and investigating them is already $32 almost of spend in Claude. So that is a 100x gap, and I've done way less work with these models than I have with the Muse one. That is on the they have access to all my data tier, but to be fair, Fable 5 also does have them storing the data. They're not training on it, allegedly, but they are storing it for safety reasons. Opus, they don't do that with. And if you spend the much higher 10 to 20 times more on the standard tier for Spark 1.2, then you will end up paying still not anywhere near this much money. But if it's 10 to 20 times more, which is roughly what it is, that would be $4 to $8 at most. For a bunch of work, that is decent. I am curious how this goes. Oh, the artificial analysis post about it finally? Nice. Cool. Seek this to before I go and look at the numbers on the site. Artificial analysis just dropped their analysis of the model, and there's, as always, I always love reading what these guys have to say. I'm curious how it lines up with my experience. Meta's released Muse Spark 1.2. It's their third release in 4 months, and it scores a 54 on the Intelligence Index, significantly improving agentic knowledge work capabilities over prior releases, putting Meta next to SpaceX AI in a tie for third place amongst US labs. Crazy they have to specify this now because the Chinese labs have caught up so much, especially with K3. Muse Spark 1.2 lands at a 54, up 3 points from 1.1, and 11 points from Muse Spark 1.0, which came out in April. That's a pretty big jump. Like, if we're just looking at the trajectory of what Meta right here, that's a lot of improvement in not a whole lot of time. It's effectively tied with GPT-5.5 and Grok 4.5, narrowly behind current frontier models like Opus 5, Fable 5, and 5.6 Sol, as well as Kimi K3. It's among the most cost-efficient models at its intelligence level. It's 40 cents per intelligence index task at Meta's unchanged $1.25 and $4.25 per million token pricing. They don't mention, I was right when I was reading that earlier, they are not measuring the prices based on the contributor tier. They are measuring them based on the normal pricing that they would charge actually. So if we go back to the pricing chart here, it's about a 10 to 20x difference in price, which means Muse Spark 1.2 on the contributor tier is actually the cheapest model currently here, because it would be 2 to 3 cents per task, which is comparable to V4 Flash as well as 5.6 Luna. Very interesting. This model, especially if you're down to like let Meta have your data, could be a really good value for the short term. AI omniscience abstention rates have increased. The model's score rose from an 18 to a 22, and the hallucination rate fell 10 points. The attempt rates dropped from 82 to 67. This bench is measuring how likely is the model to lie when it doesn't know something, and it's much less likely now. Even though, from my experience, that is not the case. Scientific reasoning results remain largely unchanged. Does much better at GDP val, but I still don't love that bench. Good analysis. We can work with that. How is my work over here going? You know what? I'm just going to tell it to build it. Cool. We'll let it try to integrate itself. I am curious how it does. Oh boy, it's spinning up those sub-agents now. Probably going to hit rate limits again. That is great. Yeah, I'm hitting rate limits again. I might have to switch. I'll stop all of these. We'll move off the contributor tier. You may need to spin back up. May need to spin the sub-agents back up. Let's see how it handles continue. It is nice having one model to pick between, or it is nice only having one model and just picking between the two versions that have different pricing for the exact same thing. But when one of them hits rate limited that hard, it's a little annoying. Cool. Time to spend way too much money comparison, or time to spend way too much money in comparison, even though all the data I'm about to get here is technically available for anyone to train on because it's in my videos. Okay. The review sub-agents are finishing up their work. I switched to the higher price tier and I'm still getting rate limited. Are you kidding? Like, I'm just doing the sub-agent stuff they said that they support well, and I'm hitting rate limits constantly. This is obnoxious. And it sucks. It's like the harness actually feels pretty good. It's like a minimal polished up Claude code. It is making my laptop a little warmer than I would like, but yeah, this is, yeah. I am annoyed by the rate limit thing more than anything else here. The rest is not the worst. Like rate limits on subscription plans make some sense. Rate limits on paid per token tiers where I am using it the way it's intended is pretty rough. God, I'm running low on time. I need to wrap this one up. I did want to make the joke from here. Did not find what I was looking for. Fucking Grok, man. I love when it doesn't link the post. It just like quotes it and links the person. So I can't click it and show it. Thank you, Grok. I'm trying to find a good place to sneak this joke in for a bit, but now's better than ever, I suppose. Muse is trained heavily on data from people using models like Anthropic models internally and all of the work they do. But I've heard numbers as high as 50% of staff at Meta have been moved over to some type of data labeling or like management tasks in order to help them train smarter models. And one of the results here is this wonderful tweet from Luke. Muse Spark is trained on the screen recordings of Meta employees, which makes it best in class at applying for jobs at Anthropic. Absolute banger. Now, where were we? I think we were waiting on rate limits to relax a bit. Looks like they have at least a little. Ooh, cool. Sol is now done comparing things here. Yeah, this is what I expected. It's a slaughterhouse. It also decided to weight the different categories more and less heavily depending on how it felt about them. So it said for the current repository and API fidelity that the plan from Muse is 4 out of 10. The plan from Fable is 7 out of 10. For the protocol research, they tied roughly. For end-to-end and multi-surface completeness, Muse was nowhere near there. Fable was a lot further along at 8 out of 10. Lifecycle, permission, safety, recovery, pretty close. Delivery plan, close-ish, with Fable a little ahead at 7 versus 5. Simplicity and maintainability, both didn't score great. But overall, Muse's plan got a 4.8 out of 10, and Fable's got a 7. Yeah. Considering the gap in costs, that is reasonable, but considering the reality that you have to merge the code when it's done, this is much less reasonable. Still a very interesting model, just not necessarily one I would trust for making big sweeping changes to my code. Any other things we should be comparing or looking at here that you guys can think of? This model's not watching Paint Dry Simulator. It's actually very fast. I'm just giving it really big tasks out of curiosity. The UI comparisons would be nice, actually, if you can get those done. I might film that as an extra after. Nikita's leaving Twitter? Oh, shit. Oh, fuck, I did not mean to retweet that. I just wanted to like it. I think he was overall net positive. Yeah, I had not seen Nikita left. I've barely been online today. I've been busy, okay? I want to test this final result, see if it works. Then we'll do the why to use it or not use it. Then we're done. No, it's still going. We'll let that do its thing. I think now's a good time to answer the important question. Why would someone use this model? What makes Muse 1.2 useful enough that someone should use it? Well, the obvious reason, Well, the obvious reason, like the number one thing that would make someone want to use this model is that they work at Meta. In which case, they would probably use this as their second or third most used model compared to Opus and Fable, because I know they love those models there. So the main reason to use Muse is that you work at Meta. But there are other reasons that I'm seeing a bit of. The biggest, of course, is that you like to try new things, especially when those things are cheap. Because this model is cheap. Even if you're not willing to share your data and you're using it on the paid tier that's a little higher up, it's still a very, very cheap model. Although now that I've switched out of that way cheaper tier, I just went from 40 cents to $5.32 for the work I've done in the past 10 minutes because it's going so fast. But it did make its integration for Muse inside of T3 code. So I will ask it to spin up dev server and share link. If it got this working properly first try after a little bit of plan review from Fable, then credit to them. They made a model that's pretty good. If this fails outright, then expected. Models this cheap can't really do tasks this exploratory and undefined because, again, they didn't put out the SDK I need to build this. So the model had to integrate Muse into T3 code with hacks more than anything. Work clones T3 code -1 .m/work trees. Oh, it's .muse. That's the problem. That makes sense. Moment of truth. Code work. I'll throw it at Lakebed. Why not? Let's see if we are in here. Muse Spark 1.2. What is this project? Not looking good so far. Really not looking good so far. No errors or anything. Looking not good. Didn't even add it in the provider section in settings. It just added it in the UI here, and it does not appear to work. Was a nice attempt. I just checked the provider page, and it didn't have anything. Yeah, rip. The auto-generated title was from Codex, because that is the default. If you have Codex, I just use 5.6 Luna on low for it. So the title gen was nothing to do with Muse. It just appears to be broken. Okay, so sadly, what this means is you cannot trust it for longer running things for sure. I was hoping it would be a little more capable at that, but it is not. So what other reasons would you use this? You like really fast models that are somewhat capable. Like this is not anywhere near as good as a model like 5.5, even though the benches suggest otherwise. It just doesn't get it as well. And that's what makes this model so strange to me, is that it understands breaking up work in subagents and not stepping on each other's toes when it does that type of thing really well. But it's nowhere near as good at actually seeing complex work through. It's almost like it knows how to act like a modern smart model, but it doesn't know what the modern smart models know. I like the comparisons people are making with Grok Code Fast, because it does feel similar there, where it has a lot of the layers that make the models work well, but it's not good enough to really be trusted. And it's hard for me to do and I'll be honest, it's hard for me to justify using models like this for a lot of my work, just because I would rather wait 2 to 3 times longer and have something I can almost certainly merge versus trying it 5 times with a fast model and still have a mess inside of it. Honestly, the most impressive thing here is the CLI. It's a lot more stable and less annoying than Claude Code. It's still not my favorite. Like Pi still smokes it overall, but it's solid for a thing that like they threw together for this release. I am tired of the labs making new CLIs and things when they're already in last place, forcing us to install yet another thing. But they did provide integrations for things like open code, so that was nice and right direction-ish. And it still crushes everything Google is doing by quite a bit. It is funny to see Meta quickly leapfrog Google, but still be far behind everyone else. It's almost like these big companies are fighting to be like fifth place, and all the startups that are really embracing the power of these new models are excelling and jumping far ahead. Obviously, Anthropic and OpenAI are far ahead, but companies like but companies like Moonshot with Kimi, like like ZAI with the GLM series and more, are all far ahead of this, in my opinion. Hell, I would still use Grok 4.5 above this. I do have one last test I wanted to give it, though. Switching back to the cheaper version. You know what? I'll speak this one. I want you to audit all of the pull requests I have open on T3 code. Figure out which ones are mergeable, which ones need more work, which ones should be closed, which ones have been trumped by other things merging, etc. I want you to make a priority list for me of what I should look at first and how confident you are in me merging it. Break up this work into lots of subagents in order to get through it faster. Cool. We'll see how it does with that. I forgot to yellow mode it. There we go. Bad gateway when trying to hit the GitHub API through the CLI. That's fun. Is GitHub down? No. Is just formatting things wrong? Fun. It's doing some sketchy shit to get in. Interesting. Which AI is up? Thank you. sneak this a bit earlier in the video, wherever you think it fits, Jeff. Dara just got me one of my favorite things to look at when new models drop, the comparison of how it handles design on his whichai.dev site. Very nice for like looking at the designs that different models do and comparing them. And I'm already seeing some interesting things here. Like I love how it uses the scroll areas where this like graphic on the side scrolls with you until you hit a certain point. The sections are tasteful too. I don't hate this. I'm tired of the pills on everything. It feels a little templatey, but not bad at all. And this little tilted reminder recall thing here is nice too. This is all without the design skill as well. If we switch to the second one, we end up with one of the cringy code style ones. It's laid out well. Like its page layouts are solid so far, but I don't love the design and the graph it made there. It really likes doing these tilted things. It has one here as well. I really like this one. Of them so far, this design looks decent. And I like the way it's using the like squircle here. I don't like that it switches from squircle to rounded there. This isn't bad though. This, again, is reminiscent of Gemini to an extent. Way too much text. Way too much text. But otherwise, not bad. Oh. These brutalist ones are getting tiring, I say, after making lawn video, which is absolutely of this style. But yeah, it's not bad. Like nothing jumps out as like, that is horrible. I don't love having the bar here when it's already a very brutalist, like line heavy style. And now the classic like Tailwind template homepage. Oh, it does these little floaties well. I like how it uses those. Other models get that stuff really wrong, and I've fought it a ton on things like the T3 code marketing site. It has something about it. But again, like this is what's interesting. And like to go back to what I was... that's like what's interesting about it. This model just has a bit of a different flavor. Where were we? It went through all my PRs in 4 minutes. That's like genuinely impressive, especially because I spent the first 2 minutes just trying to get into GitHub and off it. If this review is of decent quality, then this might be what I use the model for. I might just use this as my go-to, like, go review all the PRs I have open. Oh, that's a nice little thing. When I have Codex and Claude make these PR audit pages, they often don't link the actual PRs with these like links here. And this did. That's really nice. I've been annoyed at how many of the models don't make these clickable links. Even gave little confidence scores. This is one of the better PR review pages I've gotten. For reference, here's one I made with a different model, and I actually had to tell it, please make sure these are links. I genuinely prefer the layout of the version that Muse did here by quite a bit. I might even use this as like my go-to template in the future. This is super readable to me. I like little confidence scores. I like that it tells you if it's clean or dirty merge, what it thinks the status of things are. This is good. This might be one of the use cases I end up using this for a bunch. So to go back to use cases quick, do you like fast models is one, but others, or one of the big ones I've now learned is for random code adjacent analysis work. Obviously, I wouldn't trust this model to like actually go merge PRs for me, but as a surface level, like go audit what's going on in this repo for 20 or 30 cents. That was really good, especially with like no additional effort to try and make it better. Like that was great. I'm gonna tell it to go further here. How about you do a similar audit for all open PRs that have had updates in the past 5 days? If this audit costs less than like $1, it was absolutely worth it. One of the things that'll be hard for this model with this, though, is that it's not trained on GitHub because, again, Meta mostly uses their internal Mercurial stuff, where all the other labs are heavy on GitHub, so they've trained the model to be very good at GitHub. I'm about to hit so many rate limits. It doesn't seem to have parallel limits like all the other harnesses do. It's more than happy to run 7 sub-agents in the background at once. And it gave each of these a ton of PRs to look at. So it's $8.41 before I hit send on this. We have spent another 5 cents since. Okay, it's going to hit rate limits. We'll let that run in the background. I'll come back to it if it ends up with good results. But back to why you would use it. I already said you like to try new things, but I really want to emphasize this point because this model has a different flavor. It when we went through the different designs it made, it did things meaningfully differently. It still has the early Gemini 3 Pro era style overall to it. Like a lot of these look like what I saw at Gemini 3 and 3.1 Pro. But it also just has little niceties to it that give it a vibe that's different. It's like a little bit of seasoning that they added that other stuff doesn't have. This really is a model for enthusiasts right now. Like you want to go play with it because it's fun to play with new things, not because this model is going to magically save you a bunch of money or become your go-to. Like no one should use this model as their day-to-day coding model. But what it is interesting. The things that Meta chose to focus on, the things that they didn't focus on, and the capabilities that I'm seeing here, it's fascinating, genuinely. And I'm definitely going to play with this model more. Probably through a better harness, though, because you can't really integrate this one with anything. I don't know why they closed source the Muse CLI here. Like Muse code should just be open source. Meta, you guys know better. You're an open source company at heart. Just put out the source. I'm missing numbers. Oh boy, I think it might actually finish in a sec. I'm very curious how this goes. Come on, finish. I've been going way too long on this video. I'm not going to have enough time for all the other shit I have to record before I leave. I'm so fucked. Come on, finish. Last thing I need for this. Oh, I can use it with Pi soon. Nice. Guys, I can't look at other things because I have so little time. Like, I need to be on a plane in a few hours. So I have to blast through content. Okay, cool. There we go. In under 5 minutes, it was able to index and review 222 pull requests. And this cost me a total of 10 cents on the contributor tier. That is insane. Being able to go through that much real work, like auditing 222 pull requests in my code base, organizing them by how mergeable it thinks they are so I can quickly blast through this and ship real code. That's insane. That's actually valuable. And this is why it's fun to experiment with the models. Like, try the different things you do and take a look at how much it costs and how fast it runs. Being able to hit a button and spend 10 cents, and in 5 minutes, you have a page like this for 200 plus pull requests on your project. That's good. That's useful. I'm impressed. I would use this regularly, and I might even set something up to automatically do this for me every day. That's cool as shit. Remember, though, that was on the contributor tier, so if you're not willing to share this data to Meta, you're going to be spending 20-ish times more, but that goes from 10 cents to $2 for this type of work and this much work. That's genuinely really impressive. I think you should play with this model if you're interested in this type of thing. Obviously, you shouldn't trust it for everything. You shouldn't just blindly go through and merge stuff. But as a way to like pull signals out of noise for really, really cheap, it's a fun way to experiment and try things. Stuff like generating titles, categorizing PRs, generating summaries for reports, digging through logs to find useful stuff. Like, this is solid. And doing similar work with Fable cost tens, if not hundreds of dollars. And this was literally 10 cents. So yeah, not a bad model. I think it's going to get a lot of shit because it has all the weird quirks it has, but when you think about it for the price, the speed, and the capability, as well as its weird things it seems to do, not better, but different from other stuff, it's fun. It almost is like playing with one of those like interesting toy programming languages is how it feels to me. It's different in a way that isn't necessarily ready for real world work all the time, but it's cool as fuck and very fun to play with. So yeah, there were... frame. Cool. I definitely had ups and downs with this exploration, but overall I'm coming out somewhat impressed. I don't think this model is going to kill Opus or Fable anytime soon, but it's a model that I could see myself playing with for lots of weird things, especially when you consider the price. If I didn't have all of these accounts across Claude Code and Codex that I just burn for all sorts of stuff, I would probably be leaning on models like this. And even though I have those other things I can burn, I am still going to be trying this to try and just organize my work and life better because it is so surprisingly cheap. I'm curious how y'all feel, though. Am I just too frontier model pilled, or is this actually a really... I'm curious how y'all feel, though. Am I too frontier pilled, or is this model just not that impressive? Let me know how y'all feel and if you'll be using it. And until next time, peace, nerds. Muted. Cool. That went way longer than it was supposed to. Why would I give all the PR data to them? Because it's open source. Everything I ran it on is open source. Thank you, Pranch. Fine. I'm not against it. Depends on how it works on the rest of the page. Not super interested in self-hosted alternatives to CodeRabbit and Greptile. Like CodeRabbit, Greptile, Macroscope, all of those, even the BugBot by Cursor, like they're all really good. The thing I want them for is to not have to think. And they're really good because I click a button and set them up and then don't have to think anymore. I also don't want to have to spend my own tokens on those because a lot of them are pretty subsidized. So yeah, that's my thoughts there. Anything with people I missed while we were filming that? Thank you, Shiv, for the gift. Appreciate that. Ender Shrooms with the Prime. Act Storm with the 7 months. Flamey with the 8. B Stag with the Prime. NCE with the 19 months. Rayet with the 13. Idle Josh with the Prime. Grimulf with the gift. Charlie with the 13 months. Knackers, always good to see you, man. Take your Prime. I'm the sole reason you open Twitch. Damn, I feel like you're like an OG Twitch person. That's crazy. Appreciate the kind words. Thank you, man. Jeremy Johnson with the Prime for 6 months. Thank you for that. Maybe a Hermes or OpenClaw agent, fast and somewhat intelligent. Hermes could be a fun use case for this. Finally able to keep a watch streak again. Times was the biggest enemy. Can only imagine. Thank you for 51 months. Goddamn. It's definitely not better than Grok 4.5 from my experience. Bugbot got way cheaper with a big pass recently, but it's still a little expensive, yeah. I just explained why I don't want these things. I'm very happy with the existing stuff. Gotta clear shit up. You're not a junior. They consider you mid. You'll get mid-level salary after the first month. Fuck yes. Congrats, PC Style. Well deserved. YouTube memberships. Thank you. Thank you, Borodino33, for joining the T3 Club over on the YouTube side. Sorry I've been neglecting YouTube today, but we got a lot of shit to go through. I want to talk about the MCP stuff. I don't think I need any of that anymore. I don't. Cool. This is the right URL for that. I'm trying to find it. Is this not right? Do they not have a better blog post for this? Oh shit, Spacetime with the 5 bomb. Appreciate that. Thank you, man. Ignoring YouTube chat. I will set that up another time. I'm so busy. Is there another MCP link I need, or are we good? I think we're good. We're just going to do it. Send me other links if I need other things. Grab that link. Thank you. Kind of crazy we can get nostalgic for things that were literally just a year ago, because MCP has not been I want a better take on this. Time for a 2025 throwback, because we need to talk about MCP. It's a standard that was really popular at the time. It felt like everybody was trying to integrate it in their stuff, but it wasn't something I was particularly fond of. In fact, I was notoriously against MCP. I felt like it was massively overrated and a really bloated spec that caused as many problems as it solved, and I just didn't find myself using it a whole lot in my day-to-day workflows. In fact, I've actually found it more annoying recently because tools like Codex use it properly, and by using it properly, they end up wasting a bunch of resources, because every single MCP server needs to be a dedicated server with a dedicated connection to the client while it's existing. Even if the client never ends up calling it, it has to be bound to a real connection on a real server. It got so bad that a lot of the MCP stuff that we use was just hosted locally, because the amount of infrastructure it would take to host it in the cloud just wasn't worth it when it wasn't being used 99% of the time. But there's a new MCP spec now. They should call this something else, like MCP2, or just a new name entirely, because the MCP branding's been destroyed. But this improvement is massive. And I'm not the only one saying this either. Simon Willison has said the following. Simon Willison just posted an article saying that stateless MCP has recaptured his interest. This is kind of the spoiler, by the way. MCP can now be stateless. This is a very, very exciting change that makes MCP go from a worse version of a CLI to a potentially actually useful integration to have in our tools. I'm really excited about what this means, but there's also some concerns that I have with the change, and I cannot wait to talk about all of that right after a quick break for today's sponsor. Good to have you back. It's time to talk about the new MCP standard. I wish they gave it a good name, but instead it's MCP 2026-0728. Didn't we learn this lesson with model names when Anthropic had all the different versions of Sonnet 3.5 that were just different dates? Like, they know better than to do this, yet here we are doing this. I have other complaints about this coming up, don't worry. The 5th spec release of the Model Context Protocol, MCP 2026-0728, is live today. The latest spec moves MCP to a stateless core while hardening authorization and graduating official extensions. Support is being rolled out across Claude products. This is the big part here, that MCP has moved to a stateless core. Very, very, very exciting. What do we mean by the stateless core? Well, according to Anthropic, MCP has moved from a bidirectional stateful protocol to a request-response model. Almost like the exact thing I've been saying it should do for a long time now. Servers can now deploy on serverless and edge infrastructure. This simplifies the experience of building MCP servers for Claude and scaling their usage as they grow in adoption. Yep, this is the key piece. As I mentioned before, in order to set up MCP, you had to have a dedicated connection between the thing running your agent and the server providing the service. So if you were building an MCP for, I don't know, let's say that you had a database platform and you wanted an MCP so that and you wanted an MCP that allowed for your customers' agents to look data up or find things in the DB or audit, make changes, stuff like that. In an era where we didn't have a good way to share all of that context, MCP was really powerful because it allowed you to expose an endpoint on your service that your agent could connect to, and from that get all the data it needs for not just enabling it to access that data, but also giving it effectively instructions on how it can use those endpoints and what it can do with them, providing examples and whatnot too. The problem with MCP is that relationship between the client and the server required them to be connected throughout the entire process, even if you weren't using it. So if you set up 5 MCPs in your Claude code and then went and did a task that used 0 of them, that Claude code run still has 5 dedicated stateful connections bound between it and external services. I'm going to show you one of the silliest examples of how this affects you in day-to-day. I'm going to spin up Codex. It's trying to and failing to initialize the Xcode build MCP, so I got an error there, but watch what happens when I say sup. I'm hitting enter now. Oh, did they suppress it finally? They suppressed it finally. Cool. I gave them a shitload of feedback about this. There was a problem where every time you spun up a thread in Codex, it would block your first message until it finished initializing the MCP servers for computer use and whatnot. They recently changed it so that those wouldn't happen until after you send, which helped a bit, but they have changed it even further where you don't see it as much now, which is good. But previously, it was obnoxious because every thread, and more importantly, every sub-agent would have to spin up 5 or more stateful MCP connections, which means that on your computer, if you have one agent run you're doing in Codex and it spins up 5 sub-agents, that is now 30 stateful connections that are bound on your machine for one prompt. And that is for the server and the client, because it has to spin up the server side for that locally for all the computer use servers in case any one of those sub-agents wants to do computer use. And now you have 30 stateful processes on the server side in Codex, and then they're bound 30 times on the client. It is so much overhead. And if you have seen syspolicy D eviscerating your CPU, this is why for us Mac users, because syspolicy D is how macOS monitors processes to make sure they're not doing anything sketchy. And spinning up 30 servers on your machine looks a little sketchy. But now that it's stateless, none of that matters. Each agent can just hit a random endpoint and get back some JSON and then decide when it wants to do things from there. Instead of it being a bound connection, it is just an endpoint that is hit, which is, to be frank, the way it always should have worked, because all MCP should be doing is informing the agent of what its capabilities are and then giving the agent everything it needs in order to call and do things. This also means the infrastructure you host it on and the ways you provide it on your computer can be entirely different too. You can have a simple local HTTP API or one in the cloud that fetches data and has like one little key in it to distinguish between things instead of keeping a bound connection the whole time. There are other things they added here, like they standardized extensions through apps and tasks. They hardened auth, which is cool as well. And a bunch of companies said awesome things about it. There's the bit about tasks. I thought they also changed something about skills in MCP. Like a way to like dynamically load the context. I was pretty sure I saw that somewhere. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Oh, cool. The official MCP site has a nice visualizer for this. Like setting up your MCP before required a intelligent load balancer to make sure the client connected to the same place always and that things went back to that one. And if somebody else came in, they got routed to the correct instance as well. In a world where things are stateless, everything is significantly simpler. So you don't have to maintain the connection through the load balancer the whole time. It was one of the most highly requested features from developers who were eager to get better reliability and scalability for their MCP servers. Fuck yes. Yeah, it was the lazier on demand stuff if there's something for that. They finally killed the handshake bullshit from that awful old web spec that they shouldn't have implemented. That's a nice change. Is it that? These are MCP development skills for building MCPs, not what I was thinking of. Yeah, I think this is what I was thinking of. Yeah. Maybe it wasn't here. Let me scan this quick. Not what I was looking for. Okay, I can't find what I was looking for there. We'll forget that part. I want to share what Simon Willison had to say about this, and then I'm going to share my personal concerns about this change. As I mentioned at the start, Simon refers to this as stateless MCP, which I think is a really good way to clarify what this release is. Tuesday was Stateless MCP Day, the rollout of MCP 2.0, or the 2026-0728 Model Context Protocol Specification, to use the more formal but less memorable name. This is the most significant change to the MCP spec since it first launched, and it's also served to reignite Simon's personal interest in the protocol. For background, MCP is the Model Context Protocol, which describes a standard way to expose new tools to LLM-powered agent frameworks. It was introduced by Anthropic in November of 2024, and it had a huge spike of interest throughout much of 2025, and it became eclipsed by Skills, which was another thing Anthropic invented. Kind of crazy that this super fancy spec and protocol got replaced by a markdown file, as many things do nowadays. And the Skills took over when it became apparent that agent harnesses with access to terminals in curl could do most of what MCP did in a more flexible way. Simon's coming back around to MCP now. Giving an agent a shell environment with the ability to access the internet is fraught with risk, and it requires a strong model that is capable of effectively driving such an environment. MCP tools are easier to audit MCP tools in comparison are much easier to audit and control, and they're simple enough that smaller models that run on a laptop can still drive them reasonably well. The new stateless MCP spec greatly decreases the complexity of implementing both the client and the server for the protocol. He built 3 of them just this week. He linked this blog post that shows the before and after, where before you had to have a sticky route to one server and share sessions and data and manage all of this to make sure that when a request came in, it always stuck with the one server that was hit before. Now it doesn't matter. The older stateful MCP, which he refers to as legacy MCP, required 2 HTTP requests, one to initialize a session and obtain an ID, and the second to actually start calling tools. But when the tool calls come in, it has to match this session ID and get routed to the right place, which means it has to be maintaining the connection. Obnoxious. And the new stateless version uses a single HTTP request, which is what it always should have been. It's so much cleaner from both client and server-side implementations. It's also a better fit for building scalable web apps, since now you don't need to maintain server-side state to keep track of those session IDs or worry about routing the same session to the same backend machine. MCP Explorer is one of the things that... MCP Explorer is a cool tool he built with Codex in order to explore MCPs to see how they're behaving with these new changes. The stateless Python CLI, you don't even need to install it to try it out. You can just call it with UVX. It queries the agentic mermaid.dev demo MCP. The above command returns the following list of tools. I can even run this in my terminal. Let's try it. That's super cool. This simple command can be pointed at an MCP server and then describe all the things that are available on it. This one has an execute one for executing Mermaid SDK code, describe SDK, render SVG, render ASCII, render PNG, all these commands that could be useful if you want to use the Agentic Mermaid site to generate images and verify like mermaid diagram code. It even has the ability to inspect specific tools. Maybe I have to... I'm not going to fight this. Still super cool. Kind of cool that his demo here isn't even using agents. He's just calling it by hand to show how the protocol works, because now it's simple enough to just fire off a command and get a result. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. He also made one for dataset, which allows MCP endpoints to be added to any dataset instance. He's tried building this 4 times, but thanks to the new stateless MCP specification, he finally has a version that feels good to release. Huge. This is what's so cool about this. When you end up with a bloated spec that requires you to have an expensive infrastructure to put it out, the likelihood you bother putting the thing out goes down massively. And now that these are stateless, it's way easier to get it working, to get it shipped, to get it integrated, and to scale it if it doesn't end up being used heavily, and to spend $0 if it's not used at all. You can throw this on any Lambda or Cloudflare worker or anything now trivially, and it's so much better. And in a world where agents are doing more and more unsafe things, MCP as a way to be really strict about what agents can do is sensical. Because again, if you give it a CLI, the agent can do pretty much anything. But if you give it a spec'd out set of endpoints effectively that are self-describing in a way the agent can use, then it can only do the things that those endpoints provide. Simon's conclusion is that he plans to lean into MCP much more now when he builds sensitive applications on top of LLMs. And I agree. It's crazy that I actually think the spec is interesting, good, and usable now. But there is a catch. I need to talk about this catch. And the catch is the subtext here. As long as you're on the right version. This is the problem that always happens when specs change, when capabilities change, when things change. Trying to think of a good example of something I ran into with this type of problem recently. Imagine you're looking at a product and they gladly exclaim, "We support agents." And you're like, "Oh, cool. I would love to use this with Claude Code." So you go to set it up, and the instructions are all specific for using it in Cursor. But all of the screenshots are the version of Cursor from like 3 years ago. And you're like, "Wait, I thought you support agents." Well, yeah, they technically do. In the same way that a phone cable might support USB-C. I have like 8 different tiers of USB-C cable in this apartment alone. And the problem is that all of them are USB-C. So if I ask for USB-C cable, I don't know if the thing I get's actually going to be what I want. And now that there is so much absolute slop MCP servers that were built in an era where MCP was just a way for a company to justify their AI budgets, those are all MCP servers. So if I decide I want to try out MCP and I go to a website and they say they support MCP, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to go connect that. And then it uses the old standard. That sucks. Or what I'm more concerned about is the client side, where there's a lot of different agentic clients, harnesses, etc., things like Claude Code and Codex, as well as all of the others like OpenCode, Pi, Cursor, of course, Anti-Gravity. There's too many. And a lot of those support MCP. Whether they support the new MCP, did they support MCP 2026-0728? Because that is very different. And if I build an MCP server that is on the new standard, the new spec, and somebody goes to install it in an older version of Claude Code or in some other tool that just hasn't updated their MCP bindings yet, that sucks. And this is going to be a real problem for adoption because the previous standard was so heavy, weird, and annoying, and it still got implemented everywhere. This new, much more elegant, reliable standard won't be implemented everywhere. And two things that both support MCP might be entirely different and entirely incompatible. And that's a real concern I have, because that's the point of MCP, is that it's a simple standard that everything supports on both server and client. Now it isn't. By fixing the standard, they ruined the nature of the standard. It is a way, way better solution, but this new solution is not backwards compatible because the previous implementations on the client side expect a stateful connection to be bound, and this is the opposite of that. You can't just take something that expects a dedicated connection and sever it and expect it to work. There is a catch, though. One of the things that makes this less likely to matter. There's this cool thing you guys might have heard of recently. I don't know. I know they're still niche, but hear me out. There's this thing called LLMs. And it turns out LLMs are good at code. What this means, hypothetically, is any tool that you're using that is only supporting the old MCP standard on the client side really doesn't have much of an excuse to not implement the new standard. Because if you're a company building a harness or an agentic graphic, because if you're a company building a harness or an agentic tool or something like that, it's your responsibility to keep up to date. Because if you built a coding tool that you think is the bee's knees, you think it's super cool, and I try it and I'm like, hey, your MCP standard is out of, and I go and try your super cool AI code tool, and then it doesn't work with my MCP services, you're on an old version, and I say, hey, your harness doesn't work with the new MCP. You say you support MCP, but it's the old version. Can you update it? You only really have two answers you can give. They are, yes, absolutely, I'll get an agent on it now, or, I don't really care, or I'm too busy, or something along those lines. And if their agentic coding tools are so powerful that they can convince you to try their thing, but they're not powerful enough to update the standard relatively quickly, you should ignore that person and their tools. So hopefully the way this works out, fingers crossed, is that it becomes a bit of a self-own, where the companies building tools that only support the old version of MCP get called out for what they are, which is not understanding of how powerful these things are and how quickly they can iterate and fix stuff. Or they do, and it can be a good filter for which companies and products do and don't get it and do and don't improve over time. I'm at the point where if a company is building an AI tool and they're not giving meaningful updates every week, that I just assume they've deprecated it and stopped working on it internally, because there's no excuse to not be shipping updates regularly at this point in time. It's too easy to ship code that is too good. There's no excuse for not upgrading. So that's the only reason this is acceptable. In a previous era where you had to manually update everything by hand and rebuild this whole standard into your stuff, this would be hell. But in a world where you can point an LM at the new spec and say, hey, make sure this works, here's 3 test MCPs, and it tests it, and it does, awesome. It'd take like an hour with Opus or Fable. Not a big deal. So those are my thoughts. That's my one big concern, is a big change like this that's inherently not backwards compatible is going to cause some churn. But in a world where an LLM can go and update your tools for you, it's not a big deal. What is a big deal is how much more powerful this standard is now that it is stateless and can be properly implemented across scalable solutions without having to spend a shitload of time and money and complexity to get there. It's a nice change. It feels like it actually understands developers and what their needs are instead of just trying to be this God spec with every possible thing included in it. And I'm excited to play with it now. I can't believe I'm excited to go try out MCP again, but I really am. And I can't wait to see what I'm able to do with it. Let me know what you guys think. Are you going to stick with your CLIs, or do you see real potential with MCP now that we have these changes? Until next time, peace, nerds. I pushed back hard on Ben's stuff because MCP was too complex to justify. Now it's way less complex, which means it's actually somewhat justifiable. I'm scared to film model tier list because Gemini 3.5 Pro is likely about to come out. And if I film it now and 3.5 Pro drops, it will come out after 3.5 Pro comes out. And that's not great. So we need this on a week where there isn't breaking news and it can come out soon after, or it'll be out of date too fast. Yes, Gabriel, I have the news. All three of these could be fun. I got one, maybe two videos left. Probably just one. I want to think these two through a bit more. The problem with this is I don't want to do a sponsor in the T3 code one. And we need enough for sponsors. I think we can do this. Yeah, I'll do this. Fuck it. Thanks for stopping by, Hypernova. I'll do one last pass thanking subs before I wrap up for the day, but I need to keep filming right now really badly. Thank you, Kyle, for the sub. What's the hotkey for the sidebar? Command B. Cool. Let me... Well, I made the marker. Let's get started. God. This is a video I never wanted to make, but the more I... my hair's a little chaotic. There we go. Cool. This is a video I never wanted to make, but the more I think about it, the more I feel like I kind of have to. Because if I'm being realistic with you guys, I've always been a terminal first person. I know I'm the vibe coding soy boy JavaScript guy that's always plugging things in VS Code and invested in a VS Code fork, but I am not that at heart. I do like being able to scroll around code and click and select things with a trackpad or a mouse, but generally for my day-to-day work, I was always in a terminal. I've been a big terminal nerd since before I even wrote code. I was using them to host my Minecraft servers, to SSH into computers all over the world and do all sorts of fun, crazy things. I was deep in the GNU screen... I had a deeply modified GNU screen config that I put a lot of time into before I started moving over to Tmux, because I'm old enough that GNU screen was still the standard when I started. I have been using terminals for the majority of my life. Since I was 13, I've spent most of my time running, working, auditing, and doing my day-to-day stuff inside of my terminal. And that's just not the case anymore. I had a moment a few days ago where I was getting a bunch of work done, and I started command tabbing to try and find my terminal, and I couldn't find it because I had done a reboot and not opened up my terminal because I didn't need it for like 8+ hours. And that's when it hit me. I'm not doing my work in a terminal anymore. And I really, really need to talk about why. Before I can do that, we're going to have to take a quick break for today's sponsor. Cool. I already know how this one's going to go. There's going to be endless bias accusations of, oh, Theo's just here to plug T3 code. He's shitting on terminal so that he can plug his own thing. Oh, do you mean this open source thing that I spent a shitload of money and time building because I so deeply believe the terminal's the wrong place? if you think T3 code is the reason I'm doing this, if you think T3 code is the reason I'm doing this, your reasoning is worse than Sonnet 4's is. Because this is obviously a thing I built because of my beliefs, not I'm lying about my beliefs because I built this thing. That obviously doesn't make sense. I wish you guys would just use your brains a little more before leaving those shitty comments. I'm sure there's already 100 of them plus. Scroll through the Obsidian ones, and I'm sure you'll find plenty about how I'm just plugging my own shit. But in order to skirt those accusations for now, I will switch to ChatGPT. Let me hide things here quick. You good there? Cool. I just need to clean up some stuff first. All of this is fine. I do have to do an update first. Okay. So here we are, an app I haven't used in a while. I just had to update it because I haven't been in it as much. But it still is, in my opinion, one of the best starting points for a developer who is moving into coding more with AI. Let me... While the Codex app was the big thing that pushed me over on this belief that terminals were just not the right place to be coding anymore, it was not the start of my journey here. The place that I started thinking about this most is honestly kind of embarrassing, and I even feel bad putting it in here. I feel sick even typing it. Oh, God. Just, can I delete it now? Do I have to leave this word on the screen? I'd really like to just hide this. I'm just going to get rid of that. Okay. Really, though, when I first tried out anti-gravity, I was mostly unimpressed, but there was one particular piece that impressed me. There was a hotkey you could click, or there was a hotkey that opened up the agent manager view that lets you see what the agents were doing across different instances of anti-gravity. So if you have like 3 windows open for 3 different projects, you could have this one window on top that showed you what was going on with agents in each of those other projects. It was a left sidebar with projects that had threads in each project that you could see from one external view. Huh. Sounds familiar. Interesting. Yeah, as much as I don't want to admit it, the anti-gravity GUI, or as much as I don't want to admit it, the anti-gravity agent manager was one of the first times I experienced that. And if anti-gravity wasn't such a shit show, I probably would have actually used it a bit. Jesus Christ. Yeah. I even said as much in my coverage of anti-gravity when it dropped. Please seek a clip in from that video, Jeff. Cool. So anti-gravity was the first step in my descent as I realized that the terminal was not the right place to do this anymore. Funny enough, just a few weeks prior, I was at the Cursor office complaining to them that all their new integrations with the Cursor v2 agent view made it too hard for me to use my terminal because they made it way too annoying to like get the path that a work tree was in so I could CD into it in my terminal and then run things. Because a flow I often had is I would use Cursor, I would open up something in the sidebar, tell it to go do something, get a result, want to go check it, and then have to find some way to CD into that path for the work tree in order to run it, install things, and do stuff. And the built-in terminal was, no, not happening, especially at that point in time. So I ended up bullying So I ended up bullying them enough to give me the one-click copy buttons that I needed in order to keep using my terminal for the actual doing things beyond sending prompts. And I got to the point where I would use cursor to send a prompt, and then my terminal to do everything from reviewing the diffs, reading Git history, investigating changes, actually running the code and doing things. And I was split like 50-50 between I would be in the cursor app for prompting, and that would be my terminal for everything else, especially Git stuff. I did all of my Git through the stock bog standard Git commands. Occasionally I would add like one-liner helpers to do things like commit and push with one line, stuff like that. But for the most part, I just used stock Git CLI. I need to get this anti-gravity thing off the screen. It's going to hurt me. But then the models got better, and importantly, the Codex app came out. And when I started using this, my beliefs that I had from anti-gravity saying that this is horrible, but it's also kind of the future, got me really excited. And the more I played with it, the more impressed I was. The ability to just break your work up into different projects and clearly see what's going on in them, to have multiple things going at the same time, all in their own work trees, the ability to quickly open up a terminal and type things in here if you need for whatever stuff that you're doing. I got to the point where I was still looking at my Git history through the terminal inside of my Codex instance. And it was solid. It was actually quite good. And in a world where I was using my terminal more and more, because I had at this point moved to Claude code and was constantly running Claude code in my terminal, opening lots of terminals, using awesome tools like CMux, which I still highly recommend to manage all of my different things going on. I was still a big Tmux guy. I was still a very deep, big Tmux guy. I only started using tabs in my terminal at the start of this year as like a personal challenge when I set up a new computer to see if I could finally move off Tmux. The answer was no, spoiler, but I tried. So I went through all of that, and then the Codex app dropped, and I was like, wait, I can just screenshot something and paste it and see it. I can select text and copy it and paste it, and the formatting's not broken. I can scroll and it doesn't lag a whole bunch. And most importantly, by far, I can hop between different things easily by just clicking. I know this sounds silly and dumb, but when you're working on 3+ things at a time, it's just a couple too many hotkeys in Tmux. And keeping track of what is where is even more annoying. You have to remember which hotkey goes to which thing, and then you start building systems in your head for these 3 panels are for these 3 things. This 4th panel is for this thing. This 5th panel is the flex panel. I use it for whatever. But then you end up with a 6th task, and your whole model breaks down. I tried my hardest to figure this out, and again, to their credit, CMux got the closest anything has gotten to figuring this out, giving you a sidebar similar to what you can get out of a Claude, or by giving you a sidebar similar to what you get out of something like the Codex app, but also just giving you a terminal on the other side. It's great, and it's still my default terminal. In fact, all the boxes I SSH into, I have in a little folder called SSH, so I can have all of these connected and quickly hop into them at any point. But man, having a real UI with text that was more pleasant to read, with much easier to navigate and find things, with a category system that made sense, having actual projects that are based on where things are in your computer, it made me code way more. But one of the biggest problems I had with Codex is that it was closed source. So when it did have regressions or problems or things that I wanted to fix, it just wasn't super realistic. I was able to bug the Codex team a bunch, and thank you to my friends over at OpenAI. You guys have been awesome about taking all of my feedback and addressing it meaningfully and swiftly. But there would still just be random regressions and changes and things like the merge into ChatGPT. It's like, this is no longer Codex. This is now ChatGPT. They let you use the old icon, thankfully, but like, this is now the ChatGPT app. Because the Codex app was so good, it made these tools accessible to people who weren't developers, and they decided to give that capability to non-devs by rebranding it and calling it ChatGPT. This is one of my biggest issues. If you wanted good open source solutions, you basically had to use the terminal. You had the Codex CLI, but you also had lots of other awesome things. Shout out to stuff like OpenCode and Pi, phenomenal harnesses and terminal tools for coding with AI. But if you wanted a GUI like Codex, your options were to use the one locked to the provider that you like. So you can use the Claude Code app with your Claude sub, or you can use the Codex app with your Codex sub. You could hack the Codex app to use other things, kind of. You could kind of do the same for the Claude Code app, but you shouldn't because the Claude Code app is just not very good. But your only option if you wanted one place for everything was OpenCode. But then you lose all the subsidization because OpenCode isn't using the official harness. You also don't get the features that get added to things like Claude Code or Codex. If you wanted the best in class, or if you wanted the best features for the best price with the best models, you had to use Claude in the CLI or Codex in the desktop app because both companies kind of stopped supporting the other side as much, where a lot of new Codex features only happen in the app and a lot of new Claude Code features only happen in the CLI. And I got to a pretty nasty point where when I was using Fable, I was in the CLI, or not Fable. And I got to a pretty nasty point where if I needed to use my Claude models, I was in the CLI. And if I wanted to use Codex models and GPT models, I was in the GUI. And I ended up finding myself defaulting to OpenAI models, even in things they were worse at, because I just liked having a good app more. And it's all these little things that add up. Like, seriously, if you haven't tried one of these GUIs, I would love to self-plug, but just go try the Codex app. It is genuinely really good. It has its edges. It has its annoyances. They added the new activity view, which is inspired by what we've been building in T3 code. And as cool as it is, it's not quite all the way there. But goddamn, if this isn't a massive improvement on what you're already doing, I don't know what to tell you. It's so much easier to keep track of what's going on, where work is happening, what you've been doing, and actually getting stuff done. I can't tell you how many times I lost track of some terminal session. I had to open up Claude Code and tell it to go find the Claude Code I was doing work in, or the work tree that I started from, or all these other things. I had to put a ton of time into just keeping track of what was going on. And as you can see from my chaotic setup here, I put a lot of time in. I had to reboot this machine earlier today, so I lost all the sessions I had, but I had like 30 terminals in tmux on this one Linux box for various Claude Code and Codex things that I was doing. I still have a whole bunch over on my other Linux box here for all these types of crazy tasks that I've been trying, just like running goals indefinitely to see what happens, like the TypeScript Rust port that I was briefly working on before I ran out of tokens. Just keeping track of what is so annoying. And you can do like renames and things if you want to take the time to, but it's so annoying. And the amount of work I had to put in to try and make an environment that was reasonable just to switch between Claude Code and Codex on real work and keep track of what I was doing, it's just more mental overhead. I'm going to be real with you. It just is. And this is not historically how terminals worked. Historically, terminals have been the option that is less mental overhead and slightly more upfront cost. You had to spend a little time to set it up how you want. And then from that point on, the terminal is mostly just doing the same thing the way you want to. But in a world where the work I'm doing is changing so actively that the projects I'm working on might be brand new, they might be months old, they might be years old, and the amount of work I'm doing in parallel can change a ton as well. I might be working on one thing, I might be working on 10 things. The rigidity of the systems I built for myself in the terminal was not flexible enough for the work that I was doing today. And I tried my goddamn hardest to fix that. I put a ton of effort into making it so I can paste images over CMux, over SSH through my tmux layer here. So I can Command V here and paste an image through CMux over SSH into the tmux into the tmux Codex instance on this machine remotely. That shit was so buggy for a while, and now it's relatively stable. So I could finally paste images over SSH. But that's like a thing I had to put time and effort into to do something as basic as screenshot something and then send it to my agents. With a GUI, I just do it. And I would say like half-ish of my prompts have images, because when I have an error or a thing that is annoying me, it's a lot easier to just screenshot, send it, and say fix, and it will. Whether that's a screenshot of your app or just a weird error you didn't expect to get when you ran a command, sending screenshots to your model is very effective. But it's not very effective when you can't even see what the image is. But my biggest complaint is none of this. It's actually, okay, it's kind of part of one of these things. It has very little to do with the terminal and very little to do with the agents. It's three very specific, very annoying letters. SSH. SSH kind of fucking sucks. It's really useful, really powerful, and I spend a ton of time in SSH. But as soon as my connection isn't perfect, I end up with all sorts of problems. I had a problem a few days ago where I was running Claude code over SSH on my local network, which is a Wi-Fi 7 network with gigabit to 10 gig speeds, depending on if I'm wired or wireless. And I had my computer plugged in over 10 gig at my desk downstairs, and I was getting sticky keys while I typed trying to do work in Claude code. It turned out it was bound to the Wi-Fi, not to my Ethernet, but the fact that I even had to care is absurd. And don't get me started on trying to do things on mobile. I tried so hard to make Termius work for me. I paid the full price for it. I support the developer. I think it's awesome. And it helped me debug something even this morning. Like, I still use these things. They're just not the thing I default to anymore because they're fragile. And it's incredible how powerful a standard SSH is that's been around for over 30 years and it works so great to this day. And there are other fun things. Like, I know SSH 3 is apparently much better. I know Mosh is really cool. But I do not have it in me to deal with all of those things, to get marginal improvements, especially if I want these to work on my phone. Because trying to do real work on my phone via a terminal has me questioning my own sanity and also questioning the reliability of all the other people who were saying that using their terminal over their phone was a totally acceptable way to do Claude code. It just isn't. And thankfully, Codex accepted this fact, and they introduced the ability to control the Codex app, now the ChatGPT app, over the ChatGPT app on your phone remotely. And it was so much better. It had its rough edges, but the ability to spin up some work on my computer and then finish the thread on my phone when I'm away, it just kept me off my computer a lot more. And I found myself like walking around, doing more chores, leaving my apartment to go run errands, and being able to check in on the stuff that I was doing over time. It was really fun and cool, and also obnoxiously buggy, and most importantly, was super restricted to the Codex desktop app, which meant I could only use it on my Macs. And when you combine that with all of the annoying parts of how Codex is implemented around the security policy stuff on macOS, where it spins up 5+ processes per thread and per sub-agent, which can just hose your performance, I was getting annoyed. And I had a couple things that I wanted. And I will list all of the stuff that I wanted to make sure I could do. The things that were annoying me. Obviously, pasting images was a very important one for me. I also wanted all models with subsidization. So I wanted to make sure whatever came out here worked with my Claude code subs and my Codex subs, so I could get the 8 to 14 grand for $200 instead of having to spend 8 to 14 grand for it. I wanted good remote control. I wanted best in class Linux support, because as I've said in many videos, check out my Linux video I did recently, Linux is so much better for agentic work because the file systems just suck a lot less. And spinning up work trees is free instead of taking and spinning up a work tree takes 2 seconds instead of 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Just so much better. And even when I'm going like really heavy on my work on my Linux boxes, it is rare I can spike even like a third of my utilization. Like, I have 32 cores on this machine. It's a Ryzen AI Max box. It's the framework desktop. I mentioned that before. I have tried to stress this machine, and I basically cannot do it. And a lot of that is just the fact that Linux doesn't have all of the chaos trying to scan every single thing Codex does. So I have best-in-class Linux support, good mobile support, good performance, low battery impact, and probably the single biggest part, a good way to manage lots of things at once. This is all the stuff I wanted. The only one of these things terminals offer me are best-in-class Linux support. They don't help in any of these other categories in any way. And now you guys have waited long enough. The commenters can do their thing. I need to talk about T3 code. Because Julius and I made T3 code because we shared a lot of these frustrations. We wanted to love Codex and did for a lot of things. I know Julius still uses it heavily. I've slowly moved off the Codex desktop app. It has its benefits, for sure. And I'm hoping that we can clone as many of those as possible in the near future. Julius and I tried all the other options that existed at the time and were very unhappy with them. The couple that were okay, we gave a lot of feedback to, and they fixed some things, they failed others. And we got annoyed. I tried building a new... I was so annoyed about the performance part in particular that I tried building my own GUI for... I got so annoyed about the performance part in particular that I tried building my own native GUI for Codex to just try and make something faster. I ended up in hell with scrolling text because SwiftUI and AppKit are not great at big scrollable views with text. And it turns out Google put a lot of good work into Chrome for that. So I begrudgingly threw that project away, begrudgingly spun it back up on Electron just out of curiosity, decided to architect it in a way that made other things like the remote control a little easier by putting everything on a WebSocket instead of binding it through the Electron RPC. And the result was something surprisingly usable. The result was T3 code. It did not look at all like this at the time. It was sinfully ugly at the time. But it allowed you to use Codex with an open source GUI. That was a lot less impactful on your system's performance. I'll be honest though, for the first few months, I still found myself using the Codex app more than T3 code. I would rotate between them for sure, but I spent most of my time in Codex probably. There would be moments where I went up and down, but I kept finding myself back in Codex. But Julius couldn't take that. Julius continued iterating on T3 code because Julius has something that I don't. Julius hates terminals. This one was hard, and I've argued with him a bunch about this. He exclusively used Git through the VS Code extension. He probably knows most of the Git commands in the terminal, but he never uses them. The only terminal he would open was the one in VS Code or Cursor to spin up his dev servers. Everything else he did through the editor. He's one of the best devs I've ever met in my life. He's, without question, the best dev I've ever known that hates terminals. And for me, T3 code was a way to have an open source solution that could potentially solve a handful of my problems. For Julius, T3 code was his ability to escape the terminal. And he took the challenge. And the motherfucker did it. He made T3 code so reliable, so stable, so well implemented and integrated. He got work trees working perfectly. He got Claude code and Codex working perfectly. He got open... Let me make a new thread on this machine. He got open code and Grok working as well. And even Cursor, although the Cursor integration needs some work. Big update coming there soon. He did all of that because he wanted to take advantage of all of the models from all these providers at all of these subsidized rates. But he didn't want to have to use a shitty terminal app and memorize a whole new set of hotkeys for every different one. And T3 code became his surface for managing all these different agents and all these different solutions with a one-stop place where everything behaved the same regardless of which models you were using. And reminder, this is using your Claude code and your Codex on your machine. It isn't doing some crazy... And we're not doing it with some hacks like Claude-P. We're using the official agent SDK, which Claude code has... Retake on that. And we're not doing some hacks like -P. We're using the official agent SDK blessed by Anthropic. They were going to change the policy. They have temporarily held it. They might indefinitely hold it. Still waiting for updates there. But this all works above board, officially supported by both Claude Code and Codex, to the point where the Codex team is publicly shouting us out as inspiration for features they're adding into Codex. We put a lot of work into all of this, not just building it, but negotiating with the labs to make sure we do things the way they want so that we can continue offering your subscriptions to the platforms you like in our app without getting banned. And then the magic piece comes in. There's a little button here at the bottom. Other apps have this, to be clear. Most of them have it as a use it on your machine or use it on the cloud button. We have something different. When you set up T3 code on a machine, you can now control that machine through T3 code on the app on another computer, on the website on app.t3.codes, or in the mobile app. Yes, we have a fully supported mobile app for iOS and Android, and yes, it is also fully open source, so if you want to build it yourself, you can. This here is magical. The thing that has fundamentally changed how I work is the ability to just pick a computer, send off a task, and close my laptop. I'm no longer even thinking about I no longer even think about what I'm about. Before this, I found myself having to prioritize my life around when I could run an agent, because if I had to run an agent and then I had a meeting coming up and that was going to overheat my computer and make it unpleasant to use in a call and spin my fans up so loud that I couldn't use the mics on my laptop, then I would wait until I got to the end of the meeting and then spin it up, hoping I'd have another one coming up. If I had an appointment or a trip or an event or something I had to go to, I wouldn't spin up my agents because as soon as I lose Wi-Fi, they die. Now I'm need to find my coding in Uber memes. I know there's at least one or two with photos. I'm trying to find those. Mark posts images. Oh, here we are, yeah. One of the more embarrassing things I must admit here is that I'm notorious for coding in Ubers. I would spend a lot of time driving around to different events and things because I have to go to a lot of different shit. And I would often pick an Uber just because I could sit in the Uber and get some code out. And when I'm at my office, I am so behind on so many other things that I have to do all of that. So my Ubers became my peaceful coding time. I have a lot of posts where I talk about the crazy performance improvements and changes I made from Ubers. But something bad happened. I started using Claude Code when Opus 4.5 dropped. This post is me going back to Opus 4.5 and trying something, but notice how I ended it. I will have to stop momentarily as I am currently coding in an Uber. My bad data connection was causing me problems, and as soon as I got there, I had to close my laptop, and whatever agent I was running died, and I had to spin it up later, hoping that it would continue. And the more that this happened, and the more I was doing tasks that would take hours instead of minutes, the more I just didn't want to code in Ubers anymore. Because as soon as I have to close my laptop, it's over. And now I have to think about my work in a way where I know I have enough time of laptop open for the task to be completed. And I was like structuring my day around this. It was bad. Now I pick the box I want this to run on, I send the prompt, and I stop thinking about it. I could send something to Sol, like do a deep audit of this code base, and then command Q T3 code. So it's fully dead. There is no T3 code open on this computer anymore. Oh, that's the wrong version. I can then reopen it and the work is still going. Or I can command Q it again, get it hard killed on my machine, and go to app.t3.codes. Oops, that had a big thing to do. And then instead I can go to app.t3.codes and see the exact same work across all of my machines with the ability to continue sending prompts, see what's happening, paste images, scroll through history, and even spin up the terminal if that's what you want to do. You gotta admit, that's pretty cool. And all of this is over the WebSocket connections that are spawned by T3 code when you run it on a machine. We now have a bunch of easier ways to connect as well. If you're one of those, if you're already a Tailscale person, I have a feeling you'll dig this new feature I recently added, NPX T3 pair. I'll do it nightly because that's what I've been using lately. T3 at nightly pair -- Tailscale. This command will give you a pairing code that you can scan on your phone or a URL you can use to connect on the web. And now you have a full T3 code instance that you can control. You do have to serve it somehow, so T3 nightly serve, and that will host it. Or you can use the even easier way, which is npx T3 connect, which will open up a URL to sign in with GitHub, Google, or whatever else, and then it will create a background instance on this machine, as long as it's on Linux, Mac support coming soon, that allows you to forever connect to this machine and run the agents that are already configured on that same machine. So if you have an old laptop somewhere at your house or a PC that hasn't been turned on in a while or already have a Linux machine that you use, set up a Linux on it if it's not already set up, install Claude Code, Codex, both or neither, run this one command, npx T3 connect, and now you can control that machine and all of the agents on it from a much, much better interface without having to deal with all of the consequences of things like SSH, of things like terminals, of all of the different annoying pieces that you have to deal with. But I really, really hope you guys understand that I'm not doing this in some secret plan to make money. I'm doing this one out of frustration. I'm doing this one out of the love of the game. If I wanted to make a bunch of money, I could have just sold this to OpenAI or Anthropic at this point. But the goal is specifically almost a counter bet. I think it's important to have good open source software that we use to build software with. And when I grew up, we were all using annoying closed source programs. When I got into code, the majority of things were closed source program. Oh, God damn it. When I got into coding, it was mostly a closed source ecosystem. All the editors people used were closed source. Things like Visual Studio, things like Sublime Text. They had some concept of extensions, but barely. And then GitHub released Atom, which was built on top of Electron. And then Microsoft decided to fight back with VS Code, which was an open source Electron editor that became the industry standard used by over 80% of developers. And suddenly we all were using tools that we could customize. And now AI is huge, and everyone moved to Cursor, which is a closed source fork, or to things like, or to Claude Code, which is a closed source terminal, or to the Codex desktop app, which is a closed source desktop app. And our ability to customize our tools started to fade fast, which is particularly ironic because we're also now in an era where it's ever been easier to customize tools as long as you have source code access. And it just deeply frustrated me that the tools I used would randomly get worse and I couldn't fix them, and had things I wanted and didn't have the ability for me to add them. And I wanted to make sure that the next generation didn't have to grow up with a bunch of closed source tools they couldn't customize and agents that are more than capable of customizing. So I ended up spending a lot of time and money and resource and betting hard on doing this, not because I think I can make money on it. Sure, there's some potential to do that in the future, but the goal here is to make the best possible open source solution for coding with AI today. And I do not believe that that solution is a terminal. I genuinely believe that solution is a graphical interface that prioritizes the people who want to get real work done with systems that help you get that work landed. I have so much more I want to say about T3 code in particular, but that's going to have to wait for another video. For now, I just hope you guys get this takeaway. I don't care which GUI you use. Ideally, use a decent one. So, like, if you use the Claude Code desktop app, you're not getting the proper GUI experience. But if you use something like T3 code or if you use something like T3 code or Codex, or you can deal with the performance issues in the new Cursor Glass version, or you build your own thing, or you use Gene or any of these other or you use Gene or use Gene or Conductor or any of these other GUIs for managing your agents, I think you'll feel the difference, because it really, really is significantly better than dealing with a terminal, especially once you have more than one or two things going on. The ability to just hop around or hold down a hotkey and see which thread maps to which button, and I can just command click between the different things I'm doing. Being able to right click and archive or just click settle, all these little things, especially once you start using images and stuff too, it's so much better. And once I was liberated from the reality that doing this on another computer was too hard and no longer SSHing constantly just to make sure the agent was durable, once all of that was implemented, it changed how I code. And I went from landing like 3 or 4 PRs a week to, on my like heavy coding days, as many as 20 PRs a day landing. And the GUI and moving from the terminal to a real graphical interface is a significant part of why I was able to make that shift. So just to make sure this is clear, I love terminals, and there's a lot of me that misses using them as much as I used to. But at the same time, they're just not the right shape for the things that we do today, and it's time to stop pretending they are. The same way that iPhones used to make all the apps look like the real world objects in the skeuomorphic era, because it was important that people saw a calendar and it looked like a calendar, because otherwise they wouldn't use it. We're in that era still now with AI dev tools. We're doing things the way we used to, because otherwise it's too much at once. I need you to look forward a bit, though. I want you to challenge that belief, because the devs who are the wizards at terminals are the same devs who should be wizards with agents. And as hard as it is to admit, because I know it was really, really hard for me, the terminal is not the ideal interface for the way that we build today. If the terminal isn't holding you back, it's honest. If I'm being fully honest with you, the only way the terminal isn't holding you back would be if you're not building big enough. Push yourself more and try out some GUIs. I have a feeling you'll be surprised. And until next time, peace, nerds. Perfect. How long have you been around, Kami K? You've been around enough that you know what Sonara is. And T3 code. I was just making sure that wasn't real. This is so obviously not true. I know it's 5. My alarm is about to go off. What happened to all the videos I moved to recorded? I needed to put dates on those. So that's alarm 1. Yeah, I need things to not move out of this, because then I can't put them where they belong. Where'd those go? Okay, team, that's your problem. Figure out what the fuck's up. They're not in editing, I thought. I just checked. Oh, yeah, they are. Cool. That will be ASAP. This will be similarly soon. That. And we're going to just barely have enough content to survive until I am back. Cool. Do that. Nice. Cool. I am content. I don't have enough time to raid. Let me thank all the subs I missed while we were filming that. Is there any risk of being banned with your Claude sub? No. You are totally fine. Cervantes with the 3-year gang. Thank you for the 3 years of support, man. Silkyverse for the prime. Kyle Undefined for the 4 months. Dead Zin here for the 6. Atomic Hydra with the 6 months. Jake LOL with the 5. And hop back over here. Thank anyone I missed on YouTube. Thank you to Luca for joining the T3 Club over on YouTube. Sorry I ignored YouTube chat. We had limited everything today. I got my shit done. I got to get out of here. Got some other fun announcements coming this week, so keep an eye on Twitter. As always, thanks again. Goodbye, nerds.